Turtle knows a friend when he sees one, I said. Jimmy gave me a bear hug and we slapped hands. It was great to see him. But that didn't stop me from checking over my shoulder. I hoped the Tubmans wouldn't show up now. Jimmy also took a look around. You're right, he said. You can't even see Sheila's house from here. I guess it's through those woods over there. We'll see, I began. By then, Mom opened the front door and called to us. Inside, Dad had a fire going in the big stone fireplace. Fudge was stretched out on the floor with his Crayolas, illustrating chapter 1 of his book. Tootsie was scooting around on her dawdle bike, and Grandma was reading. She put down her book to greet Mr. Fargo. Jimmy headed straight for Uncle Feather's cage. Bonjour, stupid, he said. Bonjour, stupid, Uncle Feather answered. Jimmy laughed. Good old Uncle Feather. Good old Uncle Feather. Please, Jimmy, Mom said, don't encourage him. Once you get him going, it's hard to turn him off. Turn him off, turn him off. You see what I mean, Mom asked. You see what I mean? You see what I mean? I motioned for Jimmy to sneak away from Uncle Feather's cage. Jimmy got down on all fours and crawled across the living room out of Uncle Feather's sight. As he did, Tootsie held her arms out to Mr. Fargo. Up, she said, up. Mr. Fargo lifted her high above his head and shook her. Tootsie loved it. She has this thing for bearded men. She'll raise her arms and say up to any guy with a beard. Mom says it's because Dad used to have one. I'm not so sure. We're going to have to teach her to be more careful. I can just see her walking down Broadway in a few years, holding out her arms to every bearded weirdo on the street. Mom took Tootsie from Mr. Fargo. Thanks for driving Jimmy all the way up here, Frank, he said. I know what a long trip it is. You used to come up here in the old days, Mr. Fargo said, with my ex-wife. You remember my ex-wife, don't you? Uh-oh, I thought. I hope he's not going to start in on Mrs. Fargo because Jimmy really hates it when he does that. How about something to drink, Frank, Dad said. I was glad as he changed the subject. Some fizzy water, if you have it, Mr. Fargo said. Coming right up. Mom smiled. I could tell she was tense. A lot of people get tense around Mr. Fargo. I think it's because he never smiles, even when he's trying to be friendly. How about this Maine weather, Mom asked. You have to have weather or not, Mr. Fargo said. Jimmy groaned. Oh, Dad, that was so bad. I heard a car pull into the driveway. Oh, no, I thought. Not now. The car door slammed, and a minute later the Tubmans came bounding up the porch steps and into the house. Sheila headed straight for the fire. It's so cold and damp, she began. She stopped when she saw Jimmy and said, Oh, it's you. What's she doing here, Jimmy asked. I'll explain later, I whispered. But Sheila explained for me. I happen to live here. This happens to be my house. I thought this was your house, Jimmy said to me. Well, see, I began. We share the living room and the kitchen, Sheila said. We eat breakfast and dinner together every day. Jimmy looked at me. I don't get it. It's like two houses in one, I told him. It's like they're connected. Connected? Jimmy said. Yeah, joined together, I said. I looked over at Sheila. She was enjoying this. Joined together, Jimmy said. Sheila laughed out loud. I glared at her. See, our family lives over here, I explained, pointing to our side of the house. And her family lives over here. And the living room and the kitchen are, well, sort of in the middle. Jimmy just stood there with his mouth half open. Sheila picked Jake up and started kissing her. Isn't my dog adorable? She asked Jimmy between smooches. I thought you were afraid of dogs, Jimmy said. She is, I told him. That's not true, Sheila said. I just don't like big, smelly dogs. Turtle, who was asleep in the corner, raised his head. Attack, I told him mentally, but he didn't get my message. He just scratched himself and went back to sleep. Sheila carried Jake over to Jimmy and put her in his arms. Rub her belly. She loves that. Jimmy held Jake like a baby. She's so soft. This was too much. I was glad when Dad called, dinner's almost ready, pasta with Anne's special sauce. Mr. Fargo suddenly came to life and said, better get our things inside, Jimmy. When Jimmy and his father went out to the car, Mom said, did he say our things? He meant Jimmy's things, I told her. I hope so, Mom said, looking worried. But then Jimmy carried one duffel bag into the house, and Mr. Fargo carried another. I don't have much, Mr. Fargo said, just this and my art supplies. You're planning on staying with us? Mom asked. No point in trying to camp out in this weather, Mr. Fargo told her. From the look on Mom's face, I thought she might faint. There was a long, awkward silence, and finally, Dad said, you can have the sofa in here, Frank. It's the only available space. Unless Grandma sleeps with Buzzy Sr., Fudge said. Then I can sleep in Grandma's bed, and Mr. Fargo can have the rollaway. Everyone looked at Fudge, including Mr. Fargo. Don't go to any trouble, he said. The sofa looks like a mighty good one to me. Later, when Jimmy and I were in the bathroom getting ready for bed, he said, I'm really embarrassed about my father. Anybody can see that you've already got too many people in this house. It's no big deal, I said, as I handed him a clean towel. Yeah, right. That's how come your mother almost fainted? Only because we're out of beds, I said. You think my father cares about beds? He likes to sleep on the floor. It's okay. Forget it. Jimmy spit out toothpaste. You know he's weird. He doesn't mean to be, but he is. He's not that weird. I flushed the toilet, which reminded me of my poison gas story. Look, I said, I'm embarrassed too. I should have told you about sharing a house with the Tubmans, but I didn't find out until we got up here, and then, well, I was afraid if I told you, you wouldn't come. I probably wouldn't have, Jimmy said. But now that I'm here, it doesn't seem that bad. I was glad I wouldn't have to lie to Jimmy after all, and telling him the truth wasn't as hard as I thought it would be. Still, I couldn't help wondering how he would have reacted to my story. I decided to find out. As soon as we were in bed, I said, Did you hear about the poison gas? What poison gas? The poison gas in the toilets? What toilets? Some guy up here. He had poison gas in all of his toilets. What do you mean, poison gas? Jimmy faced me and propped himself on his elbow. It was this green, steamy, gurgly stuff that bubbled up every time he flushed. Green, steamy, gurgly stuff? Jimmy started to laugh. It's not funny. I said it was an environmental disaster. An environmental disaster, Jimmy said. Where'd you read about that? In the National Enquirer? You don't think it's possible? Yeah, I think it's possible if the guy ate something that didn't agree with him. And Jimmy broke up laughing. Ha ha, I said as I reached over and turned out the light. Ha ha, a voice repeated, and it wasn't Jimmy. I jumped out of bed and opened the door. Fudge was sitting on the floor right outside my room. What are you doing here? I asked. I don't know. Didn't anybody ever tell you you're not supposed to listen to private conversations? No. I picked him up and turned him upside down. I held him that way until his face turned purple. Put me down, Pete. Not until you promise never to do that again. Okay, I promise. I didn't believe him for 1 second, but I put him down anyway. Now go to bed. I can't. Why not? I'm afraid of the rollaway. The rollaway can't hurt you. Yes, it can. It can mash me. So I'll sleep in here with you and Jimmy. No, you won't. I carried him down the hall and dropped him on the rollaway bed. Grandma and Tootsie were already asleep. Fudge listened to Grandma, who was snoring softly. No monsters tonight, he whispered, pointing in her direction. Right, I whispered back. Now go to sleep. Tuck me in, he said. I tucked him in. Now kiss me good night. I was about to drop a light one on his forehead when he reached up, grabbed me around the neck, and pulled me down. Then he planted a big, wet smackaroo right in the middle of my face. Sweet dreams, Pete. And that's it for chapter 10. Hope you enjoyed it. Bye.